suppose first, and I have not sent you draft minutes of our last meeting, so we don't have those as an action item yet. So, we'll, hold off on those draft minutes until our next, meeting, which maybe hopefully will be,
We have 2 minutes that we need to approve,
we have 2 minutes that we need to approve. Did we approve the,
because it was small.
okay, oh, thank you, Bruce.
Yeah.
Okay, so, we will still have 2 sets of minutes then to approve at our next meeting. Thanks for keeping me organized, Bruce.
I'm the taskmaster. Almost a conscience.
So we have, and just for timing and awareness, the planning board is having a zoning workshop where they're reviewing proposed zoning amendments on November 6th. So Joanne has requested that anything that we are going to ask the planning board to consider, that she would like by October 27th. So that gives us about a month from now before we deliver final
Okay.
language to Joanne for her to present to them, for us to present to the planning board.
All right, so when we're having a zoning workshop, we're talking about zoning.
We're talking
So the
about zoning.
Zoning, not the development regs.
Correct.
All right, and so everybody knows, Joanne, we're gonna have Sylvia from Southern New Hampshire Planning helping us out in planning in a couple of weeks, so.
Right, I know she's going to surgery.
Okay.
Her knee.
All right.
Hi Betty, how are you? We're just getting started. So with that, and I know that the zoning is what the planning board, and that's what needs to be on the ballot in March. But I think in order for the planning board to feel comfortable with whatever is being proposed for zoning, the development regulations really need to go side by side with it. So I guess the zoning is, I think, pretty close, and the changes aren't significant, but there are some changes. We don't need the development regulations ready for October 27th,
Right.
but it'd be, I wouldn't feel comfortable with it being on the ballot in March without knowing that we have like a really good set of development regulations ready to go for adoption by the planning board if the voters approve a zoning amendment in March.
It'd be nice to come in as a package, knowing that we
Yeah.
don't have to do development regs right away, and that's, I
Yeah.
don't think, just by public hearing. Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
public hearing through the planning board, yep.
So but it's nice to have complete zoning to say, okay, this is a package ready.
But could the zoning pass without a change in the development regs? And I guess my answer is yes.
As it's written, as we present it to the voters, yeah, I
Yes.
suppose.
Right,
It's-
I mean, I
Yes.
just think we're sort of doing two different things. We're cleaning up the overlay district description in the zoning so that it's cleaner,
Yeah.
Right,
and then the development words. So, I mean, I agree with wanting to do that timeline, but knowing how long it's taken the planning board to deal with its own development regs, never mind just this section, I don't wanna get it too convoluted for purposes of the public hearing.
Okay,
That's
Could-
my only comment.
could this committee, the subcommittee, get recommissioned to do the development regs for the open space development? No?
It would need, it would go just like a recommendation to the planning, and the development regs are pretty close to going, so my goal would be to have this just incorporate into what the planning board is working on
In the overall
anyways.
development regs.
So I don't think there's really
Okay.
a need for that. And they hired a third party to do work on the development regs, so
Oh.
it's been years getting it done.
Oh.
It's been underway for a
Yeah.
while. So if we wanna,
So
Start?
I just had a couple
Yeah.
of questions, and I have been really jammed for time, so hopefully people can steer me correctly. I just wanted, have we made a decision, and I'm looking at paragraph E in the open space overlay district for the zoning. When I look at what Colleen had sent, providing, yeah, it's that first section, purpose and objectives. We struck dedicated recreational use. Are we not going to require that anymore? We haven't been, and are we eliminating that from our plans?
it's in your development regs.
It's in the development regs that recreational trails
Can be within that.
would be within open space. But in terms of the purpose and objectives, it was really the less sprawling form of development in order to reduce expenses for the town incurred by paving, stormwater. So to me, the less sprawling form of development, I suppose if we are trying to preserve open space for, I think we've got open space for agricultural lands, natural resources, and other sections. If we want to be preserving open space, and if one of the purposes is preservation of open space for recreational use, I think it should be a separate paragraph and not included in the sprawling forms of development paragraph.
Well, I mean, I guess that's, I sort of want the feedback on that, because the last open space we did at planning board, there was no recreational use. They talked about maybe doing trails or something, but there was nothing as part of the approved. The earlier ones, like Fieldstone, had trails that got put
Yeah, I
in.
think you need to define recreation/trails or recreation trails as well, because some open space may have trails through it for natural viewing. Others might be recreation. Hey, we're gonna have a volleyball area for the the residents. But
So,
we have to kind of define what are you looking for to say recreation. I think I'd be careful.
Yeah,
on
like
that.
an area with a playground versus.
Correct, right.
versus
well, I mean, I
natural.
think that piece you can get into in the development regs. I guess it was just, I didn't know whether as a body we thought that recreational use in trails should be a requirement of them, or just sort of if they propose it, we're gonna accept it. Because if it's going to be a requirement, I think recreational use expands lots of stuff, which is fine, we can deal with the details in the development regs. But I see your point of taking it out of that section, it didn't go. But if we're going to have recreational use of any kind in open space, then I think you're right, then I think it needs to be added back as a separate paragraph. That's just my point.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was never a mandatory thing, it was probably really always an optional thing, and I don't really see a problem with it being an optional, and regarding the last one versus Fieldstone, I don't think there's any real difference there, given that with the Fieldstone, it's like, well, PLC's gonna take it over, there were no details about these are what the trails are gonna
Well, my
be.
concern is that,
And it's the same with Conservation Commission taking the other, yeah, we plan on putting trails in, we'll come up with a management plan once we take delivery of the property and get out there and survey it and, give more detail. But I'm not gonna say specifically where a trail is gonna be until we thoroughly walked it and, have the data to lay that out correctly.
but I guess if it's not part of the plan, who's paying for it? Why wouldn't we have the applicant be on the hook for that piece of the development? And I understand what you're saying, but then you end up with the whole funds thing and parking areas and how are you gonna pay for it?
Well, we did specify the parking in
In
both
what-
cases. In both cases, in this last one too, they were supposed to provide, and we assumed there would be kind of minimal parking, because we don't anticipate there being a large, it's not gonna be like, people going to the mountain or something, it'd be the occasional visitor. A lot of the people, most of the visitors would probably be nearby who will walk in.
Look, the reality is the open space
Right.
is used by the abutters. But, so
Yeah, so I don't feel strongly one way or another that, in my mind, for this purpose and objectives, the purpose to me of the open space development is not preservation for recreational purposes, it's preservation for conservation and for open space itself. And for, I mean, I'm not opposed to trails and things and passive recreational use, but I don't want to see, I'm just one person, I don't wanna see playgrounds or, just park areas like, manicured type. I think that the purpose of the open space is, if it's passive recreation, and I'd be okay with passive recreation maybe being one of the purposes, but I don't think it's for active recreation or for creation of, multi-purpose fields within individual subdivisions, they're just never gonna be utilized. Think there's a lack of field space in our town, but I don't think that the open space subdivision or the open space development ordinance is trying to solve that problem.
And I'm not
No,
arguing that point,
That
but
wouldn't be fair to the residents in
Yeah,
that
yeah,
development.
yeah.
Everybody's coming through the narrow streets and the,
Yeah, we can't require the
well,
public
you can
access
look at
anyways,
lots of
I think,
places
so,
where
yeah,
residents deal with that issue, Bruce,
right,
but,
right,
Yeah.
no, that's-
so,
yeah.
we wouldn't want to be encouraging it.
well, one can argue, I think the other side of that argument, that if we're doing this for the benefit of the community, for the conservation or whatever, everybody should have access to it. The reality is we're creating private yards.
Right,
Yeah.
I don't dispute that. I would have more of an issue with open to more of a concentrated recreation like soccer.
Yeah, no,
field.
I'm not
Yeah,
arguing
yeah.
that point. My
That
point
would
is,
be-
that can PLC or conservation, if they accept the land, and I'm not involved in those negotiations when they talk to you, as part of your acceptance, do you say, we are gonna wanna put trails in and you have to fund it? I mean, how does that happen?
Your point is very well taken, and I think it is actually an excellent point. I think it would be so specific to the property in general, in both Fieldstone and the last one. I don't really see any kind of major expense there, other than the parking. The trails really cost next to nothing. It's laying them out and marking them, and there's no material to add
know, but
in. There
in
are
this-
other places where a bridge might be required, and then that would be a different
Right,
conversation.
so we need to sort of encompass, I agree, in most cases, it's not a big deal, but also, in most cases, organizations other than the town have taken them on, and this last one, the town has taken it on, which is a whole nother discussion. So, I don't know what the terms of that were, but why should the town be on the hook to put passive recreational, or even maintain it, when it is part of the development plan? It's just a whole conundrum that I've been thinking about, that I know it hasn't been an issue, but the one off of the back mountain, I mean, I think you had money to do the one that connects with Joppa Hill. You had to do parking up there.
Are you talking about Tar Trust?
Yeah. How did that get paid for?
Oh, that PLC worked all that into their negotiations. I mean, there was money came to them from many different sources
Okay.
to pay for that. And they did do infrastructure in that. They did build bridges, to cross the streams and stuff like that. So that was all taken into account.
So my point is, in these, we are not taking that into account, and I don't know how to do it, as particularly since I think you are going to see more and more instances where the only body interested in the land is the
Open
town,
space.
is the
Open
town.
space.
So I guess my only question is, and I don't have a problem with saying passive recreational.
So a
Yeah.
mechanism to take that into account for a site where it may be
Yeah.
required.
Just so it's
Okay.
there to.
Yep.
Lock it in.
So it's
Yeah.
there
Right.
as one of the objectives, and then we can, in the development regulations, and it,
Yeah.
Right.
it is not unusual on a cluster subdivision or open space subdivision plan to show a trail and to have a trail detail and say,
Yeah, I can-
and include, this is an approximate location to be determined, and that's a requirement of the subdivision plan, would be that the trail be constructed. And now, a trail's a little bit different where you're not necessarily going to be, it might change slightly, and that can be something to the discretion of staff, but I think that if it's included on the plan, it's a requirement that the developer can, or the Conservation Commission can tell the developer, we're not accepting it until that trail is complete, and it's gonna be, a 6 foot wide or 4 foot wide gravel path, or whatever the surface is gonna be, or if it's just gonna be, so I think that that's something we
Yeah.
can do in the development regs.
I think the times when that may come up are going to be very, very few.
I agree.
Few and
But
far
I
between.
also agree having something to
Yeah,
take that into account is a good idea. So
okay,
Those details would be in the
Yeah,
open space criteria.
yes,
yeah,
I mean, that, the
we
trail.
have to have some
Yeah.
It's gonna
kind
be a
of,
trail, okay.
some kind of wording that,
Yeah.
states that when required. when the site requires and how you go about, and then you have to define how you require.
What's the
What
requirement?
sets off the requirements?
Does the recreation department or whatever, do they ever, do they have volunteers and stuff like that to,
Well, that, if you mean Parks and Rec,
Yeah.
that's sort of a whole separate, I mean,
Yeah, separate.
Conservation Commission is not part of Parks and Rec.
I think you
They
find
have their
trails
own-
more with conservation.
yeah, I'm just thinking about Litchfield again, so like that's what they did in Litchfield, that they would just sort of like try to market it to people in the town, and then like they'd get volunteers to go out and create trails and do
Right.
various things and.
When it comes to getting volunteers for anything to do with conservation land,
Yeah.
trails is the easy one. People
it?
love
Yeah.
to work on trails and,
Right.
you know, just
It's the
put in
monitoring of
a call to-
encroachments and other things that's a little less glamorous.
And now it's very coordinated with the UNH nature groupie thing.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
It's, you just put out the call and they list it and people will
Ah.
come from all over and they'll even, the nature groupie thing, they even have tools to provide and
Oh,
That's
it's,
nice.
they've taken it. That program has become very successful.
wow.
That's
All right, my other comment on that, and I'm sorry I wasn't as quick as Bruce, and I don't know how to edit, so it doesn't matter, I do it,
I
is
got lucky.
at the end on the definition.
Mhm.
I just got confused on the yield plan. We had previously somewhere, and I'm not sure how we're gonna do it, but I think again, you leave it out there so that if we end up with something, it might happen. A plan submitted, it says yield plan, a plan submitted by the application showing a feasible conventional subdivision. And we do have financially feasible in our current ordinance. And while I haven't completely figured out how to do it, I am reluctant to drop that word.
Yeah.
And then it's just, the language is sort of wonky. Subdivision under the requirements of the specific zoning districts in which the property is located and the requirements of any and all state and local subdivision regulations. I didn't,
I think.
where did that
I'm trying to find, I
did it
think that
come
came from,
someplace?
that came from the existing. That's in the it looks red because we had cut it out because it was terrible, but then it got put back in, so it looks red, but that was from the existing language. So that needs to be, when we put the definitions back in for parent lot and, in buildable area, that's when, yield plan definition went back in. So I don't know that we need to define the yield plan here, because we say in our density determination, a yield plan must be submitted in accordance with the development regulation standards for open space development.
Right.
So
Assume
that,
that.
that pawns it off over there, so,
So should we get
We-
rid of it?
we
Because
can-
I read this, I'm like,
Yeah, we can get
where
rid
is
of
this
that
going?
here.
Okay.
yep.
And I just wanted, and I didn't have time to check, is buildable area really in a glossary somewhere?
I know, it's funny, when everything
No,
else is,
not sure on that one.
let's see.
Well, I mean, it was sort of
Yeah,
defined
it
as
is.
taking away the wetlands and the steep slopes.
So, buildable area is
That's why I
area of the
didn't
parcel
understand why it would be in the
except submerged lands, wetlands, land within 50 feet of wetlands of 2,000 contiguous square feet, slopes in excess of 25%, power line easements, high tension power line easements, and the area of proposed public or private street right of way. So, yeah, so buildable area is defined there and takes out basically, water bodies,
Wetlands and
wetlands,
steep slopes, yeah.
steep slopes,
Easements.
easements.
Is
the
that
power.
consistent with what we've done in ours? Because we don't mention power line easements, which we probably should. And, it's just not, all of the factors are not consistent. And what is submerged land area?
Sounds like
I mean, I
something
know what it
Yeah.
means.
Sounds like it's underwater, but.
Yeah.
Well, seasonally
I know,
or-
right, no, it's,
We can, so instead of having, for the purpose of open space, a different buildable area definition, if this submerged land area, wetlands, I don't know if this came from any place in particular or was determined by statute, or if we're overstepping by recommending that the buildable land definition could use some clarity, but, I can
'Cause
understand,
this
you know,
just-
clarifying the submerged lands, but
Because I
otherwise.
thought we had talked about adding floodplains and in the calculate, or, so
No.
are we distinguishing buildable area versus,
We had
Open
talked about
space.
that, but then went and defaulted to what the buildable area definition is in the existing. So we had talked about, for the purposes of open space, if we were going to be taking out floodplains, and then it was decided that was overcomplicating things, and we were gonna say
well, can't we,
buildable area.
can't we recommend floodplains? Cause you do see plains in other ordinances, and submerged land area is a unbelievably vague
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yep.
definition.
Yeah. Floodplain would be much better.
Yeah,
All right, so can we do that, recommend that the zoning ordinance change the definition?
Yep.
For buildable area.
to include, probably
Submerged land area
special flood
to be
hazard area.
Yeah,
Floodplain.
AE or whatever it is.
Yeah,
We need a reference, because we don't define what the floodplain is
we don't have,
specifically, right? Well, I can't find it.
Well, they can figure that out.
yeah, well, but, if our floodplain,
The floodplain isn't that a standard Corps of Engineer mapping term?
yeah, but,
Out of that firm map, I think it's an AE or an A.
so. It looks like we did clean up, so we do have under our floodplain ordinance,
Oh, there
which is one of my, it's frustrating when you have definitions in each individual section of the ordinance rather than all your definitions being
one
upfront that
phrase.
apply to
That's right.
everything,
you
but,
go.
but we can
That's why.
reference, it's probably gonna be the special flood hazard area is land subject to 1% or greater chance of flooding, the zones A and AE on the firm map, so we can recommend that be included in the buildable area definition. Or be taken out.
So we're gonna call it flood hazard area?
Yep. Sorry. I need to get a drink of water.
Okay. She must have gone upstairs for the good water.
Oh,
The filtered village water.
Good stuff.
Well, if it's village water upstairs, then what is it downstairs?
Well, there's a water thing, yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Well, you're being good to be here with us. We know you don't feel good, so thank you.
So you guys finished all this while I was out in the hall, right?
Yeah.
I just have one more comment on this
Yeah.
document. So under the purposes and objectives, A, B, C, and so on, which D and E were eliminated, so I don't even remember what they were. A, B, and C is fine. In F, couple of things, just to clarify F a little better. I think first of all, there's a little bit of redundancy in it. So it says encourage the use of land in accordance with its character and adaptability, including view sheds, that's fine. But then it says assuring the permanent preservation of open space, agricultural lands, and other natural resources. Well, that clause is already covered under A, B, and C. So I feel like we're just repeating ourselves there.
Oh, okay, so agricultural lands is in B.
That's B, preserving agricultural farming, yep.
Yeah, and C, or A is mostly the natural resources for open space agricultural
That's what
lands.
it means.
That's what
I
they-
just,
yep.
I just felt like, didn't we already just say
Okay.
that?
All right,
And then the rest of it, allowing innovation and greater flexibility in the design of residential developments, that's all fine. But then it says, while facilitating the coordination of design and use between adjacent properties. And here I feel like could be interpreted two different ways by two different people. What are the adjacent properties? Are we talking about the adjacent
Inside.
properties within the subdivision, or are we talking about the adjacent subdivisions?
Why don't you just stop, allowing innovation and greater flexibility in the design of residential developments?
Yeah, because that last part, I just
That's confusion.
didn't really understand what it was saying, or saw the two different ways. it
I
could
mean,
be
I
interpreted.
actually think it should become neighborhoods, or adjacent subdivisions. We're- But,
Wasn't that one of your things, Barbara, like way back? Talking about like how the open space stuff coordinates with the non-open space
Right.
stuff? No.
I think I'll survive now.
you okay?
Yeah, just I think a combination of allergies and everything else, but
I had allergies this morning, bad. I don't know what is going on. So David has pointed out that in F, in the new
yep,
version,
duplicative or repetitive.
agricultural lands and natural resources are specifically covered in over other provisions, so that should come out.
Right up above
Okay,
B.
Yeah, under A, B, and
okay,
And that now he's talking about that last provision that talks about flexibility in the design of residential developments while facilitating the coordination of design and use between adjacent
Adjacent
properties. So
properties.
what does that mean?
Which properties? Is it
Is it-
within the new development, or is it
Or-
within the parent?
Or subdivisions next to the parent lot? I think the intent, and we don't have Jim here, was the surrounding neighborhoods, but just based on this language.
I'm guessing based on previous discussions, that was probably the intent. I don't think this language makes that clear. But also, given the intent, I'm still a little fuzzy on that because, well, one could say, well, gosh, yes, they're gonna be different from the surrounding neighborhoods because it's a clustered subdivision and they weren't, you know?
Right.
And that seems to open a can of worms too.
So I was kind of suggesting allowing innovation, greater flexibility in design of residential development, period. Just
Okay.
strike while facilitating, da-da-da-da. Because the other thing is, again, to be careful that zoning ordinance can also get appealed,
Yeah.
challenged for a variance. And so now we gotta go back to what was the intent of the ordinance, da-da-da-da-da.
Yep. If we're not clear on the intent, then
Correct,
we should
right,
strike
right,
it.
right.
I'm fine with just striking the second part of that.
Okay.
I think it's still, it
I
makes
think we
sense.
get that intent through the development regs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ultimately, that would be the proper way that it's gonna, should go.
Okay. So far, we're gonna add passive recreational, we're gonna get rid of the duplication in F and the last part of the last sentence. And we're going to recommend as to the buildable area that there be a zoning change
We're deleting the yield plan
to
definition.
the definition.
Okay.
Do we want the flexibility paragraph? Because can't you just get a variance for anything that you want?
Well, but this is letting the planning board waive, so rather than going to the
Yeah,
ZBA for
okay.
variances for the overall, because the whole intent is that instead of having, 200 feet of frontage and, so many acres, you can reduce it. So I think that this lets it live with the planning board rather than ZBA and planning board for every
But
single
doesn't
open space.
the waiving of the zoning ordinance requirement come in the development regs for the open space?
That, to me, is an easier, smoother process, is to do the waiver of the development regs. Because that's a planning board issue, and they can do
Yeah.
the waiver based on, whatever criteria they want. I also have an issue with saying, okay, we're in the zoning ordinance, however, you can get waivers if you go to the planning board. So, well, do you really wanna say that up front?
Well, but as an innovative land use control with the statute that's referenced, that's what allows that planning board authority.
Exactly, sometimes it's
Yeah.
conditional use permits, whatever.
Yeah.
Yep, I don't have a problem overlays,
Okay.
yep. I just have an issue of like, well, and again, it's not bad, it's a statement
Yep.
saying, hey, we're not gonna do any waivers at the ZBA, because we don't, it's either variances or special exceptions, whatever. However, this ordinance will allow waivers going through the planning board.
But I guess,
In
isn't
an
the
instance-
open space plan a waiver? I mean, the development,
Technically.
the conditions
Yeah.
of an open space are nothing but a waiver of.
But that's why it needs to be written in here that the planning board can waive those, the underlying
All right,
zoning.
okay,
I think
but I
that-
get it, I
Right,
get
yeah,
it.
they
I
come
get
up with
it.
their design, and suddenly they need, oh geez, this one lot's got 90
No,
feet.
you're,
So they're
you're
100
both
feet.
saying something different.
Yeah.
You're saying something different, but it's okay, I get it. Okay.
I wonder what I'm saying.
Not what you're saying. She's saying that paragraph essentially gives the planning board the authority to do the development regs for the cluster development that are not the same as the zoning ordinance. You were saying you could come in and change it, but it's coming at it from two different
Yes.
ways. All right. So is that pretty much where we're at for zoning now, do we think?
Yeah, and the changes here really are not
Right. they're not-
significant
they're
from
not
the
substantive.
existing, what's on the books right now. It's enough that, and I think, the relocating it out of an overlay district and putting it into the, whatever we call the supplemental standard section is the biggest change. We're changing where it's located and we're cleaning up. But there's not a lot here where we're keeping it as mandatory. We are increasing the minimum open space from 40% in some districts to 50%. it used to be 50% in the CO and agricultural and 40% in the R1 and R2, we're saying 50% blanket. But there's not, we're cleaning up the density determination language, and the yield information, the yield analysis is gonna be left to the development regs. But there's not a lot here. If I'm the planning board, or if I'm a voter and I'm looking to see what's changing from our current open space ordinance to what we're proposing here,
not.
it's not significant. It's housekeeping and a little bit of increasing that percentage of buildable area. I think the development standards are where there's more cleanup and still some more work for us to do. But
Okay.
I will make a change to include the passive recreation, to make the other changes we talked about in this ordinance, and I can do this pretty quickly and get this out to folks, so that we can, take a look and then get it to Joanne as a red line version, if we think we're ready then to present that portion of the planning board.
Do we need to make a vote on that at all, or we'll just say as discussed?
Let me clean it up. I think we should probably have another meeting before the November 6th planning board, so before October 27th is the deadline Joanne wants it.
Right.
So afterwards, we can look at dates, and at that meeting, I think as a committee, we can just kind of vote on that cleaned up
Oh, we're giving it to the
version,
planning
and say,
board.
yep, we're gonna vote to present this to the planning board.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
The other document was the development regs, which have some changes and some information, but the biggest is that section 2, the density determination yield plan. And I know Barbara's been working on and reviewing some information with the town engineer on possible, so this is the language that's currently in here, and I just highlighted it and left it, because I know, Barbara, maybe you had some things if you want to talk about approach and maybe get some consensus on moving forward, but these are a little bit less time sensitive then, but still.
Right, all right, so what we're talking about is that second group of A through G in considering the feasibility. And basically what, over here we have their immediate neighborhood. See number F, that answers our question.
Ah,
So the question became the yield plan. And so what I talked to some engineers, and they said, so one, and I'm combining a couple of conversations. So what you're talking about is from a planning board perspective, how do you prevent getting what he referred to, was referred to by more than one, the red herring plan that puts everything out there and then doesn't, would never
Yeah.
work. So we talked about financial feasibility. It was pointed out that most of these developers have got access to standard road calcs and development calcs. But what you're gonna get, it's gonna be very hard to do. You would probably need to send it out to a third party. So what do you wanna look at? It was suggested, do you wanna control, for purposes of a yield plan, since they're not meeting all the, since they're not actually engineering the drawings, even if engineers stamp it, it's never a fully engineered plan. Do you wanna control the easement slopes of roads and any access because of maintenance? Do you want to change the slopes that are included in the buildable area? So they sort of went through a bunch of things. So I met with Scott Ozana, the town engineer, and I didn't print out enough of these, so Colleen and I can share. David, if you could take one and then pass one to Betty. So after we met, and Tim Searles from the planning board went, we sort of came up with a couple of things that he went to send an email out to Heidi, who he works with as our third-party engineer. So there were, Scott agrees, as you can see in this engineer, that very few of the yield plans that we get with the development are actually feasible, that anybody would ever actually, just your gut reaction is you're not gonna build that because you have 10 feet of fill for this road and you're just not gonna do it, or blasting, whatever. So one of the questions was, can we limit side slope? And so the answer was max 143. We already have requirements in the development regs. What Scott liked, and I talked to Joanne about, do we want to incorporate this in our zoning ordinance, is as to the lot, do you want to incorporate a requirement for platform or flat areas around all new structures? And part of the reason in discussion is because people are putting on additions, people build 2-car garages and make them 3-car garages. You now have ADUs coming down the road, and if you want access for vehicles, you don't want to have things situated so that people can't get around the building. So is this a feasible requirement that you could put in? But again, I said to Joanne, I think maybe this is something that should be in now, period, in a lot design, that you can't stick the house
But in the end,
right on the edge of
Yeah.
the slope and the ledge anymore. So,
that's typically, it's addressed with a minimum yard requirement as well of buildable land. I always ran into the problem down in Hudson, was wetland buffer, right up to that, the edge of the house. They couldn't put a deck on.
Yeah.
I was like,
well,
Wait,
and
so-
the other thing is, we've seen lots where the buildable area calculation is here and here, right? And so it gets, so,
well, I think there should be some provision of expansion or at least usable space just beyond the house envelope footprint.
right, I
Well,
mean, they
that- as
may
you
all
say,
need
the
a
flat
drainage
area.
system,
Correct,
but
right.
anyway, so that was one thing. Then the other one was maximum cut or fill height. The response that he got, was based on you might want to address fill materials, but some of this really is not. Typically requiring a profile for the yield plan will show pretty quickly how the proposal is or is not financially realistic, especially if you were in a cut and need septic. But then that sort of gets into, do you need an engineer to do it? But it's clearly an issue. I mean, all of the engineers you talk to say, the cut and fill stuff, we can do anything, but are we gonna do it? The answer is no.
Feasible, right.
So, the other thing that came up was, what about soil types? Because the soil types is all data from the state. So septic, drainage, erosion would be something that could be considered. Maximum retaining wall height, our regs require 4 feet for it to be engineered. And usually when you buy the wall, apparently it comes with all the engineering drawings. So, that was sort of an uncertain answer. And in regards to the question of actually doing a financial feasibility, most people have got some access, but I thought that the issues in regards to the actual lot, and we sort of all recognized as a board before that, making the footprint 100 by 100, and then I think we need to have a discussion, does the 100 by 100, I realized I didn't really know, we always talk about 80, it's 80 by 100 now, I think,
Yeah.
that you need to have that footprint, but I don't really know what the requirements of the footprint are. Like, can the footprint I have no idea.
It's a buildable area footprint,
But
but
what
that
does
means
that
that,
mean?
well, it excludes submerged lands, steep slopes, and so it's basically, I mean, it can't be a steep slope in excess of 25 feet, but it could still be a pretty,
25% is a
25%,
pretty
yeah.
steep
oh,
slope.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Very
So you could have 100 by 80,
And it
of
could
a
be
19% slope that's.
so this,
And if you have an 80 by 100 buildable area, well, if you wanna put an 80 by 100 foot house in it, then you don't have any yard for that. 'cause
Yeah.
No yard.
Yeah.
right, so that's really sort of
Yeah.
becoming an issue. So then, Scott thought about it a little more, and this is all,
Then you need the septic area.
Here,
Yeah.
here. And David, I'm looking for you for some help in this one. So, apparently Londonderry does stuff limiting, it based on soils and the soil carrying capacity. And he found, it's nice to know that other towns have incorrect references in their zoning ordinance, because he went to look at a table and it was the wrong table label, and it was like, oh,
Ouch.
other people do it too, right?
Everybody.
Good.
So, they use the soil capacity in their minimum lot size calculations. And so if you look at the housing density determination, there's a gross calculation, and I don't really know that the soil carrying capacity of any soil is to be calculated by bloody blah, found in table, it's actually 4.4. And then public sewer, and then again, they have 25%, I disagree with the 5,000 square feet contiguous area. I mean, I don't know where that came from. 100-year floodplain, there's a floodplain, maybe that's a definition, drainage easements and wetlands. But so, David, this table, from what I understand, is standard for soil types, and the state has all the soil mapping data, which all the developers use when they're doing their plan. I haven't had, Scott sent me this email this morning, I've been straight out, I haven't talked to him. Do you, or does anybody here have any idea what this table means?
Well, usually the maps and stuff that you see, they have a descriptive name for the soil type, like Paxton, fine
Soil,
loam,
something, yes, yeah.
slope of whatever. So I'm assuming that's what the soil type is, like a shortened, easier index number to go
For
into the
the-
database.
yeah.
But, so, you know, just looking at those offhand, I'd have to go cross-reference them to see what they mean. I don't know what a 324-H is now.
So typically, and for the soil sizing calculations in Londonderry, when any conventional lot was subdivided, based on your soil type, depending on how good your soil is how much this counts towards, based on the slopes and the soil type, how much it counts towards your, lot sizing. So a soil type that's, a slope B, 334H, with this, it counts towards 77,000 square feet of lot size, is a better quality, better soil than if I was a slope E. And so between the slope and the soil, there's a calculation that the whoever is preparing the subdivision plan is doing. So there's some additional language that's kind of missing from here. So if you just look at this and look at this, you can't make the connection on how those calculations are done. It does give more science based on the soils to how the lot sizing is done, but I don't know that it's. What
But I
I've
wonder-
seen is that they're either doing in Londonderry a calculation method to determine the number of lots or a yield plan method. And most people end up doing a yield plan method where they're submitting and saying that based on, our conventional subdivision, this is how. So I haven't seen many people using this
But,
to do that.
okay, I understand that, but
Yeah.
I have, Goffstown is not Londonderry. Londonderry
Yes.
is much more agricultural, very different soils. I mean, I don't know anything about soils, but if you just know New Hampshire, you know Londonderry is different than Goffstown.
Yeah.
Goffstown is ledge, a river, and some sand
Yeah.
along the water.
Some hills.
And
And,
some drumlins.
and, okay, so,
So that's where I don't know if the soils
so I'm
and
wondering
slopes
if this more effectively deals with, in developments, the feasibility of putting in water and sewer based on the soil type.
Yes, but I think we would need to figure out if these are the sizes that work for us in the weighting calculations. This is basically lot sizing by soil, so it's a weighting criteria. So we would need to determine, does this Londonderry weighting criteria work for us in what we want for our lot sizing calculations to be? And I'm not capable of.
Well, I'm not
making
either,
that
I mean, I just got this,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so I brought it. But
Yeah.
I just thought that it was interesting that Londonderry had this,
Plus now we've
But
got the
it-
other elephant in the room, state legislature, with their minimum requirements mandated, is one about a soil typing for septic. That the lot size shall be okay if it can meet the environmental
Yeah, the
standards.
DES
So-
standards
yeah.
for the septic.
And sometimes that's only 8,000 that you need for the septic, and as long as you've got that to satisfy, you can put the house and have a minimum lot. I was like,
All right,
So,
so I
whatever,
didn't know, I
that's-
thought it was
Yeah.
interesting because our soil types are so, I think are problematic in many areas, so I didn't know whether or not this would result in a better yield plan, a more realistic yield
yeah,
plan
definitely.
if this was used for the lot calculation.
That would be done as a supplement to the yield plan, I think. It's a calculation, and it's like, we have a million square feet of this type of soil, and then when we do that weighting criteria, that gives us this, that translates to this many square feet and this many lots.
All right, well, I
Yeah,
think,
So it's almost a supplement or an alternative instead of, it's not something you necessarily show on the yield plan, but it's running the calculation of the numbers, so it's a good way of maybe supplementing it. But I don't think it's a
I,
alternate for
yeah,
it.
I can appreciate what they're doing here. There's gonna be a lot of overlap with other factors though. So, for example, a soil type that's a hydric soil, no, nothing, well, that'd already be covered in our wetlands, because hydric soil is a wetland.
okay,
Other, when we talk about steep slopes, so, I mean, take any one of these, like the 253-H, and then they got slope B, C, D, and E. Usually in soil maps, the soil type is a function of slope as well, so you have a Paxton fine sandy loam, blah, and then another Paxton fine lambeosome, blah, blah, because it's a steeper slope, so they subdivide it by slopes. So that's why I have to look up what this index that they're using is, because then they're showing the same soil type for 4 different slopes. Usually it's a soil, that what I see it referred to as a soil family or a soil grouping. So I guess that's what that soil type must be.
Classification.
Yeah.
okay.
It's just a different way of,
So I guess it's sort of more of
Indexing
an
the same
overlay
thing.
on the yield plan that when they, okay, let me think about it some more, because I think, David, you're right, there's overlap. If the soil type is wetlands, do you want one or the other? And then all you're doing is having developers do whatever one is gonna give them the most lots, so what's the point?
And wouldn't they do that in conventional development anyway? They're gonna have to look at steep slopes and wetlands and soil types to get septics in. That's gonna be a
Right.
feasibility, they're gonna chop it up, go maximize all the lots they can get.
Yeah, but they
on
don't,
paper.
but when we're talking the smaller lots, like you do test pits throughout, a few test pits throughout the whole land, you're not
Right.
actually
Of each individual.
off an individual, and
Sure.
I'm actually sort of curious to see, given
But-
what I suspect the soil or land type is
That we
in the
have.
latest open space development, that there actually will be able to be water and septic on all those lots. I mean, I suppose you
Right.
can do it on anything, but,
but given my statement about overlap, this, again, have to look in the details, it looks like this could be a refinement on that, given that,
right,
we would say, okay, slopes over 25%, forget about it, can't have it.
Yeah.
Slope of 20%, slope of 15%, those are
Yeah.
still steep slopes. And that looks like, they would be taking that into consideration,
Yep.
because if it's pretty flat, it's, you only need 65,000, but if it's very steep, you need 100,000.
Yeah.
That would be covering those 10, 15, 20 degree cases probably.
okay. All right, so obviously, I did not have a chance to put it all together. It took a while for people. I met with Scott last Tuesday, we talked about it, he sent us emails, we thought about it a little more, we got the response pretty late, and he just did this, so,
Well, it's
Thank you.
probably a case where,
Yeah, for the
I've
efforts.
been looking at the old traditional soil maps, and they may not be doing it that way anymore, because they got
I don't
this
know,
new
I
method.
didn't even have a chance
It's
to get
kinda
on
like-
there, everybody, one of the engineers was like, yeah, you can get online and get all
Yeah.
the soil maps, I'm like, oh, who knew?
That would be something good to confirm, because didn't the state I thought that there's a change in like the NRCS mapping to, there's like whatever the old soil type mapping and the new soil type, so just verifying, and I could just be making this up,
I don't
but,
know, but I'll look into it because now I wanna
Yeah,
know, so.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Thank you, Barbara, for all your coordination with,
All right,
with
so
Scott.
I'm
and
trying to
I
get
think
there.
we're,
Yeah,
Right,
if I
some
can't figure it out, I'll ask. Scott.
Comments and questions, no answers to your comments
okay,
on these
yep,
development ones.
yep.
It'll be on page 2, your
All right, what
comment,
version are you looking at?
the one she sent out.
The one in the email,
the
which
red
I
one.
did not print.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I've got that one, so,
And
okay.
Colleen made a comment that this is no different than the underlying zoning recommending deleting common driveways and flag lots are discouraged. That's
What
we
section are you in?
deleted section, well, it was 5, but struck out as 4 now, development standards. I guess
Okay.
it's now section
Okay.
4.
All right,
I just make an issue that, I don't have a problem with flag lots, I think that they do have a function, but just personal.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people don't, but mine's a good buffer and it works well. Behind us.
completely.
It can be problematic if they don't keep their
Very,
driveways.
very,
I understand.
very.
She comments on the next page, page 3, lot size / frontage, side and rear setbacks may be reduced.
yeah, so we had talked about, increasing the minimum frontage. At one point, it was 50 feet, we increased that to 100, the minimum
Yep.
lot size increasing, but we didn't talk about the
Setbacks.
setbacks. And in there was that we could reduce them to a minimum of 15 feet. Do we want to reduce them to a minimum of 15 feet?
No, I think we gotta go to 20.
Yeah,
15's close.
yeah,
You
I
barely get
think,
a truck off the road.
I mean, in that,
Yeah, 15 is nothing.
we can just, I agree that, because in some of our districts, we do have this 15 feet, it's just, so it's 25 feet in agricultural. It is 15 feet in R1 and R2, so, for side setback.
What about the front?
Front is 100 in the conservation overlay, 35 in agricultural, 25 in, R1 and R2. I'd say for front, 20, I mean, I don't think reducing it, if it was 20 or 25, but I think if you reduce it less than 25, you can't even get a car in a driveway, so you're not gonna get a big
I
truck.
think maybe just stay with what the standard is.
Okay,
Maybe the front setback in the conservation district, 100 feet currently, that might be a bit much, I mean, that's a long driveway. But it does lend to open space, obviously, you know, it sets it back, the house, but
Yeah, it does and it doesn't. I mean, if you make stuff too big and have bigger, quote, clusters, then you just got sprawl.
Right, exactly, so you're kinda eliminating that, the incentive of having cluster development work, cause you kind of made a long, open, I don't know, just.
yeah.
On the other hand, we did have a case where we were doing this, and we ended up with, because people are just putting things in, a septic on somebody else's property, because
Wow.
everything was so close, and it was a huge problem for the people, so, because they didn't have anywhere to go, and because of the slopes, people didn't realize what was going on until somebody went to do something later, and then
Okay.
it was discovered.
So that led me to reworking the table of dimensional requirements, minimum lot size, frontage.
Let me pass these, so this is what Bruce,
So I whited out the,
Oh, two.
the convention one, I've got mine, I thought it'd be easier for mine.
Okay.
yeah,
So I just plugged in what was written in this development ordinance, so basically it was 25% on the frontage, 50% on lot size, but frontage was 25%.
25%, but no less than 100, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
so what happened basically is, the minimum by default in the ordinance said 100.
Yep.
That's what worked out, it wasn't the 25%. 25% of the 300, I think it is, in conservation, that was 75 feet, so I was like, nope, gotta do 100, but
Yep.
anyway, so, just to give you a feel, that's what the lot sizes are gonna look like, regardless of any soil typings or, you know, stuff like that, it's the square box. I had an issue with the high-density R2 zone. In the ordinance, and I'll write that 4F. 4F, frontage may be, it had a particular, oh, yes, but no smaller than 15,000 square feet where the lot is to be served by individual on-site sewer and water systems. This says either, not both, for the on-site,
And so that's for the underlying in
Threshold.
R2.
right?
But if we were allowing the cluster, then you either are served by both and you can go down to 10,000 square feet or not
Both is,
10,000.
both is having
Both
town
was,
utilities, not the
Yeah.
on-site. This ordinance written here is that if it's being served by individual on-site sewer and water, which row are you in? Well, I guess to me, it's not really defined in the table currently, because it's, I guess you could say it's either. It's definitely not none, because the table is about town utilities, sewer and water. But our ordinance is addressing on-site. It's kind of an inverse.
Now I'm confused.
It is, and I got confused. The table in the dimension is in relation to town utilities, town water, town sewer. But the ordinance on 4F, for a minimum lot size, for the lots to be served by individual on-site sewer and water systems, by both off-site, no, on-site, I went up one, is to be served by the individual on-site sewer and water systems, 10,000, scratch that, and 15,000 square feet, where the lots to be served by both an off-site sewer and water system.
so,
Wait, yeah, I feel like you're merging, so,
yeah,
and it's, again, it's just awkward
Writing.
phrasing.
Yes, yes.
It's so,
I guess I'm asking for clarification.
so, and the reducing to no more than, to 50% of the underlying, I'm leaving out the 50% of the underlying zoning district, but if I'm just looking at, in my R2 district,
Yeah.
if I am, under my base zoning,
Yep, conventional. Yep,
conventional,
Yep,
if I have neither, if I'm on-site septic and on-site water, so I have a well and I have a private septic system, my lot size is at least 40,000 square
correct,
feet.
because that's none of the public utilities.
I'm
Yep.
able to reduce that to 15,000 square feet if if I'm in a cluster. So that 40,000 can be reduced to 15,000, but not, because it's actually 50% of the underlying zoning district, so it's 20,000 square feet.
Right, and that's what I found was
Yep.
20, correct.
So, but then if I have both off-site, and we say off-site, but that's because it could be municipal sewer and municipal water,
Right.
or it could be a
Community.
community, like a large community leach field or a community water system.
Okay,
So if you have the community system, then you get your both, you can be reduced to 10,000 square feet. But, and we don't give an option for either, like if there's one or the other, then there's not an option in the cluster. Where in the underlying zoning district,
It
there
is.
is.
Okay.
But in the cluster,
so maybe
not.
so
then we
this
could just,
needs to be made
So the new table.
two different
Two
sentences. No, the language in K, though, that needs to be two completely separate sentences.
yeah,
Because that's why,
that's why I'm getting hung up.
that's
yeah,
why
it's
he would.
confusing.
and it will have some repetition, but it needs to, cause
Yeah.
it is confusing.
Okay, thank you. No, it's,
Yeah, yep,
That's all it is, it's,
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out where the comma goes and.
right,
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
it's this huge run-on sentence
Okay,
that,
yep,
yeah,
just
you lose
bringing
it
it
in
up.
it. Yep, that's great, thank you.
I'm trying to make it work. I'm trying to break it, it is
So
exercise
are we
it.
changing the 15 to 25 for the minimum of the rear, front, rear?
For the front, I'd say a front setback of 25. I'm okay with the side of 15, because that's what we're allowing by right in our R2 and R1 now.
All right, as long as we keep the language that fire safety code
Yeah.
satisfaction of the,
Yeah, you need to
Okay.
meet fire
Yeah.
code.
so front can go to
So front would be
25 and
25.
rear and side will keep 15, okay.
15 sides and rear on all zones.
And, yeah, yep. And I guess the only thing, so I'm quick to say, yeah, 25 in the front, because it makes sense, because then you can have a driveway in front of your house and you can actually fit a car in it. But to David's point, the more that well, I don't know if it was your point, but you said that, points out that the more that we allow or require a bigger frontage, the more we're pushing those houses back and the more we're eating into the open space that they're providing. So I think though that 25 feet is a reasonable, I wouldn't, it's at least reducing that, whatever, the 100 feet that's currently required in the CO district. So
I
those
mean,
houses are coming a lot closer. And it's still giving you at least, there's some front yard there. And you're not creating neighborhoods where the houses are literally on the
road,
street, on
right,
the
on the
road.
street.
You know, the problem is that we have so much in town that is sort of pre-zoning and that kind of thing. Because if you look at village commercial or commercial, the front setback of 10 feet, and that's what happened with the stuff across from the villa. When they got these lower, when they got permission to do residential in what had been zoned commercial / industrial, they were able to use the underlying district setback for a use that was not intended. So you end up with the condos going in with these, it's like they're right there. And that's how that happens.
Are you talking about the one on 114 or like a different one?
The one at the intersection right now in particular, but also the one
Yeah,
with the
that's
fences,
crazy,
that's more
right?
than 10, but they got the benefit of that too, huh?
I'm just wondering how they're gonna get their cars in and out, to be honest, because it seems like a little crazy, but.
Village district?
I go by it every day.
They got
so-
permission to do it, it
Right.
was insane.
I was in San Francisco recently, and so you got like a house, and then you got a garage, and then you got like these tiny little sidewalks. So everybody, you can't park anywhere, in certain parts of San Francisco, because the sidewalk is this big, but your car is this big.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was just kind of entertaining, the whole garage thing happening, and then the sidewalk thing, and I don't know.
That's one of the reasons that I think we hear that folks, when they've created a smaller development, a denser development,
Yeah.
then their argument against why they don't wanna provide sidewalks is because basically it's like a little section of sidewalk and then a tip down to the driveway and then tip back up and then another little section and then it's just this series of, and so that's the argument why when people are doing these denser developments, then they don't wanna provide the sidewalk or have because it's, people
Well,
just walk in the
it's just gonna
street.
be worse now with the inability to
Yeah.
require parking, so.
Yeah.
it's gonna be-
So, which is the inability to require additional parking, which makes sense for the 25-foot setback minimum at least, so at least
Yeah.
you've got some
sure.
driveway there, but,
We're not calling it parking.
no, it's just a driveway, that's just your front
Right,
yard setback, and
Exactly.
so
So they're gonna park in
you're
the
gonna
front
have
lawn,
to
right, exactly, whatever.
pave something to get to your garage.
No.
No, we don't actually have any sidewalk requirement anywhere, do we? Or is it just
We
always
do
waived?
for
or-
multifamily,
'cause it seems like so few of them have sidewalks.
So new development doesn't have a sidewalk requirement?
I think they do. I thought they did.
Thought so. Probably always gets waived. Always did in Hudson. I tried to.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not a collector road, we're just a loop. Whatever.
I'm running images through my mind of the subdivisions I can think of, and I'm not seeing sidewalks. But my mind
Well,
is
it's in our glossary, so it's
is
somewhere
very,
in here.
unreliable at this point, so.
Okay, that was a good comment.
Uh, Then I know that you dedicated an exhibit A for vegetative buffer, obviously details forthcoming.
And that's actually, and I guess it's in the existing development regulations.
Oh, nice, okay.
And so if I could ask you guys to look at that before, and I'll find it and send it before the next meeting. Because, and I think there was sort of a discussion on what, if the value of a buffer versus the value of, the open space, and so having that 60-foot roadway buffer and how it's maintained and planted, or a 100-foot buffer and how it's planted. But the intent of that is giving a buffer to those, abutting community or abutting neighborhoods, but it's not adding necessarily a lot of value to open space, it's just sort of
Right.
a screening tool. So I'll forward those, because that is from the existing, we might wanna tweak it, but,
Right, because I think they're gonna wind up with the parent lot buffer, and they're gonna
Yeah.
have the individual lot buffers, potentially. And that just needs to be defined, I think, but.
So my question on this document is, L, which is stricken out, which is basically saying that, the open space can be deeded, well, here it says to the town, I would have thought to a land trust or the town. If that is stricken out, does that, taking that option completely off the table, because I don't think that's a good idea. It should never be any kind of mandatory thing or anything like that, but as an option
yeah, so.
for the two cases we've had in town where it made a lot of sense, as an example, and most of the time it doesn't.
Section,
What we have, so it's under those development standards, and there was a section,
Section L, it's
there
all
was
in,
ownership of, so public, and it required, public ownership of the open space, where there's a public purpose.
oh yeah, I see, yep, I
So,
found it.
We have, now there's just the homeowners association, other forms of community management, so that's just the homeowners association. The open space management, the boundaries of open space, shall be shown on a plan, marked by open space shall be recorded, shall be, indicated development restricted to perpetuity, but you're right. The ownership of the open space is missing from here, so that got deleted, it needs to be. And I think the ownership options of the open space, a public, land trust, town conservation commission, or, the homeowners association would be the least favorable, but at
And-
least,
if there's any mention of a land trust, I think that it should be more specific as an LTA certified land trust. LTA is the Land Trust Alliance.
okay,
So land trusts now, the quality land trusts, go through a certification process, just like a university does or other kinds of public institutions. And that way, it's a bona fide for real land trust, not some hokey thing that's made up.
okay. Are there, aside from like Piscataquag Land Conservancy or like CELT, are there other land trusts, like are there other LTA? I assume that Piscataquag Land Conservancy is,
Absolutely.
They're
They-
certified.
They've been certified and recertified.
okay,
Forest Society is certified, and your
Okay.
major land trusts that you see in the
the
state
major
are.
ones all are, okay,
gotta-
great.
I mean, it's become such a requirement now that any land trust that doesn't do that is
Okay,
probably why they gave up the Bedford Land Trust,
Oh,
because they didn't wanna have to go through all that whole process and transfer all their land to PLC.
Interesting.
Okay.
I don't know that for a fact, I'm just speculating, that'd be a good
Yeah.
reason to have abandoned it.
Yeah,
Cause the requirements are stringent, they have to jump through a lot of hoops to get that certification. It's- And the IRS really looks at that closely now too.
okay. We'll make sure that ownership gets back in there and that the LTA, Certified Land Trust reference is.
Yeah, I suppose you probably wanna say Land Trust Alliance certified
Alliance.
rather, so nobody else will know what LTA means.
Thank you for that.
Put it in the glossary.
It goes through the glossary.
Uh,
And then my last comment on this was on page 4, under M, open space standards. 3C, walking or bicycle trails provided they're constructed of pervious materials. Should there be a maximum amount or a limit? I mean, we've got the open space, yes, we want to encourage some trails, but not all trails all over, and there's only 15% of open space, and we've developed it all with walking trails. Just a thought,
Yep.
I don't know what amount would be sufficient, no more than 10% is trails, I don't know, but,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, 10% is probably high,
A
you know, when you
lot.
consider
oh yeah,
like,
definitely.
yeah,
No
yeah.
more than 10%, I think would be fair to say. But I think there needs to be a limit, just 'cause you could see somebody put trails all over.
Which area were you, I thought you said section M, I
On
don't see it
page
now.
4,
Under open space standards, and then the
it's on my
permitted uses in the
blue line.
open space,
Oh, okay,
Yeah, that's just,
so
Thank you.
permitted uses in open space, the walking
or
trails,
bicycle trails. right,
walking or
just-
bicycle trails provided they're constructed of pervious materials, yeah.
looking at that C and D are duplicate
Yes,
of each
correct,
other, so we'll
correct.
look at that. And this does specifically allow active recreation space, so I guess
Mhm.
that's a question to folks. It does limit it to no more than 10%
Oh,
of the total open space for active recreation. And I guess, first,
do we define
do
it?
we define active recreation? And I guess we're thinking like multipurpose fields, playgrounds, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Is active, we can define it. Do we want to allow active recreation in the open space?
That's a good question, what is bicycling, cycling, is that active or passive?
It's a trail use.
Becoming a little more controversial,
It's a
whatever
mode,
it
it's
is.
a mode on the
Yeah.
trail.
Yeah.
Well,
and
then,
Well,
our
you're right.
e-bikes are,
Well,
those
that's what I was
passive, cause you're
getting
just
at.
sitting and you're not
That's the
pedaling,
controversial
so
part.
they're not active.
I know.
Some of them
Yeah.
are just electric motorcycles these
I
days.
know, a trail
Um,
bike. Hmm.
And honestly, even, so I'm okay with active I don't wanna require active recreation, if they choose that they wanna have a playground or something as part
They
of,
can do it.
but, I mean, even 10% of your open space could be quite a lot, like,
Yeah.
that's, so, active recreation is permitted in the open space areas, or maybe active recreation is not permitted in the open space, if the open space is really to preserve, so trails are allowed, and,
Well,
but-
if
but-
it's not permitted in the open space and everything else is a lot, right,
Then-
by
well,
definition.
unless they want to, the developer, out of the goodness of his heart, is gonna provide a playground area for.
We'll give you a 20 by
Kids.
20 area for the playground, Here's the
I mean,
bottom.
I can think of one example where this occurred, and that's oh, of course now my brain's shorting out, not thinking of the name of the subdivision, Heather Hill,
Okay,
Yeah,
which the bulk of their open space goes up into the area around
Yep.
Page Hill Marsh, and is really, really good quality conservation land that fits in with the rest. That's great. But at the end of their cul-de-sac, there's a small area that's part of the official open space where they have a small children's playground. And it's perfectly located at the end of the cul-de-sac there. It's very complementary with the rest of it. Certainly way less than 10%.
I know, I was
Yeah,
gonna
way less- way
say.
It's
less than
like,
10%.
you know, it's
yeah,
10% would be
yeah,
huge. So having a small spot like that, I think is actually a good thing.
yeah. maybe the 10% number we drop to 5%. I'm just, you know,
Or approved,
I'm just spitballing
approved by
things.
planning board?
Well, it says to no more than, I would think that, I don't know, could the planning board limit it in the approval and say you can't put soccer fields out back?
If it, I guess, we could add language, you know, subject to the discretion of the planning board or something, or subject to planning board approval.
Well, what's the size of a soccer field?
I don't know,
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
get a feel for what,
I mean, an acre's
Yeah.
what,
Let's say-
44,000 square feet, so,
Probably 100
Yeah.
feet by 30, because I'm thinking you get the 50 and then back, that's almost football, but pretty much, I mean,
well, so how big is a football field?
what's
100
it's 100
yards
yards times
plus,
3.
yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, that's
Yeah.
three, so that's, if it's
Soccer's not as big as football.
300 feet
Soccer's
by,
bigger than football, actually.
Is it?
Yep, yep, the
Wow.
field itself,
Oh.
yeah. But if it's
I'm not sure. I'm-
if it's 300 feet by, is that 100 feet? I don't know, say,
so
100's probably a lot, but
so it's
300.
30,000,
30,000 square feet,
so that's,
Yeah.
what, 3/4 of an acre?
yeah.
So 10 and open space is 20, generally speaking, 20 acres or larger?
Yeah, and at least 10 acres of, assuming it's all buildable, 10 acres of that's gonna be open space.
So 10 acres, 10% is an acre.
Then the question is now, is this field for the residents in the development or for the public?
That's where we can't require it to be public unless we are taking it as,
Because then you run into parking issues and all that.
and
yeah.
that's where,
So it just quick back of the envelope sort of thing, I think the ideas we're throwing out here are probably a 1/4 acre or less for the
yeah,
so-called active. And, you know, we're not doing like 1 acre open spaces or
yeah.
even
But-
10 acre open space areas are gonna be substantially larger, so. I think, yeah, that 10% is like way over
Lot.
what we would expect to be
I'll
seeing.
come up with some language that, because if it's open space that is staying with the homeowners association, like the Heather Hill situation where it makes, it's their ownership and they're gonna be maintaining and they're carrying, but if it's a open space that's being dedicated or accepted by the Conservation Commission doesn't want to accept.
Well, we're not gonna build
Playground, and you're
playgrounds
not gonna
because
go out
we're
and
not Parks and
So,
Rec.
yeah,
Right.
so I think that there's, you know, you can include it up to a certain percentage of active recreation areas, but subject to, you know, approval of the planning board, which is then gonna be reliant upon what the
Applicant.
ownership is going to be of the open space, and so there's gonna have to be some of that that's just needing to be determined on a case-by-case basis
Yeah,
as applications or.
Yeah, and it seems like we're kind of verging on the almost inevitable concept of 2 open spaces, a small
Yeah.
space by the homeowners
Yeah.
or something like that,
Yeah,
and
and another,
a larger one
the
that,
real conservation
that
portion
somebody like
being-
PLC
yeah.
might actually accept.
Yeah, cause like I said, I mean, PLC is not gonna take that, you know,
Exactly,
playground area either. Yeah.
nor would the Conservation
Yeah.
Commission.
Nor are most of these developments gonna have it anyways, because that's not,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that example I gave is the only one I could think of where I've seen a
I couldn't
playground.
even think of one, so you did better than I. And I remember, and I've driven by it at the end of the cul-de-sac, so.
You think that would be a big selling point too?
I live in that neighborhood, so.
Hmm.
So.
Well, people do have kids.
that was my belief.
Those are your comments?
That's my blood.
And
So
so I,
let me-
in
let
this
me-
document, the development regs definitely still needs work, so.
All right, so let me,
How's that?
can I just ask, and David, I think, on prohibited uses of open space, and I have to admit, I didn't really look at other ones on prohibited uses. It's roads, blah, blah, blah. agricultural and forest activities not conducted according to best management practices. So, what does that mean for like a group that's managing the open space? And what else would you like to see? Because there have been instances, maybe, and I think I'm thinking more of lots than open space, but developments, but I'm thinking of developments where there's, you know, encroachment that goes on with forestry stuff. So, is this sufficient, this list? Is this
That's-
adequately describe it?
Best management practices is a pretty broad
Broad.
term.
Who's best management
And,
practice
you
established
know,
by who?
A place that was being very actively forested could say, okay, but we're doing the forestry according to best management practices as defined by whoever or whatever. Whereas if you were trying to manage for an old growth forest, obviously that would make no sense.
So best management practices by who? Authored by who needs to be, I mean, what's the standard? Yeah, we're using best management practices, of what standard?
Well, in,
Bruce
Right?
Buttrick
Yeah.
standard
Yeah.
for,
Okay, I'm coming two
Standard.
blocks over the
agricultural.
wetland, I'm crossing over it.
and standards
Okay.
change, so having a
Sure.
statement like best
I know, that's,
management practices isn't all that bad in that regard. I mean, you know, what we might put up for during construction for silt fencing or restriction is probably, how many times has that changed over the years? Yeah, we used to put these plastic things, now we don't want plastic there anymore, cause it
doesn't
causes
degrade.
problems,
Right.
and so on, so
Alright,
it's shifting sands.
I just looked at it and went, especially since we've got this, you know, I am less concerned when PLC or something has the land, but if we're going to get into the town ownership and,
Or an HMO,
huh?
or an HMO, the.
But they don't, the
homeowners
developers don't
association,
like to do HMOs, so, I mean, it could be an HMO, are we setting this up for a disaster for the town? I don't know, I just sort of, it seemed,
Yeah, there might be, can look at some other towns and see, or other, maybe just even in our conservation easement language, or when we put a conservation restriction on a
Oh, that's a
parcel,
good idea.
what restrictions we have written into our standard.
Well, we,
Do you have standard language for a conservation
we
restriction?
absolutely do.
Yeah, so maybe
And
we could
in
look at that
fact-
and put some of those restrictions.
In fact, our language, we lift it straight from the Land Trust Alliance guidelines.
Okay,
Same source that the Land Trust are using.
okay,
okay.
okay, so some of
Because
that,
That's the logical thing to do.
Right.
yeah, that might be a great, and some of that might be maybe too, we'll take a look and see what seems appropriate for inclusion within our minds, that it could be the Conservation Commission, or it could be an HOA keeping it. Are there things the Conservation Commission that would restrict, that the HOA might wanna allow, that we're okay with? But if you have or could forward what the standard language is for a conservation restriction, then,
Well, I can certainly send you what we're currently using, but I will tell you that it has changed so
it's
much
evolved, yeah.
in the 20 years that I've been
Well,
involved
cause you
with
guys have
this.
learned
You
what's,
look at an easement from 20 years ago versus 10 years ago versus 5 versus now, they're getting longer and
Oh,
longer
yeah.
and longer and
Yeah,
more
sure.
explicit
Yeah.
because
yeah,
everything that comes up as a problem or the IRS questions. So it's no longer one page of restrictions, it's more
Yeah.
like 20 pages of restrictions or more now.
But hopefully there's a source from that, somehow, that you can codify it to a standard that everybody's grabbing those.
That's the
Right.
Land Trust Alliance,
That's what I make reference to that.
okay,
they set the standards.
That's,
okay,
as abridged or as revised, you know, whatever, so it's not static. It changes as the regs change.
So, in answer to your earlier question, what are best practices? Well, best management practices as codified by the Land Trust Alliance, or
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yep, okay.
Oh.
Okay. think we've been pretty productive for the night, so we're at 8:30. I don't know if anyone has any other burning issues they wanna talk
I'm
through.
impressed that you survived it. Well,
I've lasted
I know
and
you did not
survived.
feel good.
There was a rough moment there at the beginning of the meeting where I thought I was about to die and have to leave, but we survived, powered through, so. It's also budget season at work, so it's been so speaking of, let's set, before we adjourn, our next meeting. So this, what day of the month are we? We're on Tuesday, so it looks like the 4th Tuesdays are okay for this meeting room. But if we did the 4th Tuesday, then that puts us at October 28th. We're missing Joanne's deadline for us. I think we can try to get something in sooner. Tuesdays are good for me. If
Not the first.
not the
days.
first, because you've got
ZBA.
ZBA, so we can look, and I can ask about the 14th.
I won't be able to be there, but that's okay. I mean, the primary, I can try to work on the yield stuff and give it to you. One of the primary purposes of this meeting is to say okay on the
To say
zoning.
okay on the zoning, yeah.
Zoning
Which we're
piece.
very
Which-
close to.
We're
Which
very
we're
close,
close to.
and I'll circulate to the committee by this weekend, this cleaned up, it's really just small tweaks to the language, so that on the 14th, if anyone has changes, you can, not reply all, but reply individually to me if you have changes. Once I send that language, we can get all that cleaned up, so that on the 14th, we're having a meeting and agreeing on what we're gonna put forward to the planning board for zoning, and the development regulations will
Right.
need a little bit more work.
Right.
So,
Okay.
if the 14th seems like it works for other folks, and
I
I will
think
check
that's
with
good for
Patty
Jim.
on the room, I think Jim, I think it was the third Tuesday was
Yeah,
usually
no,
not
I think
good
he's
for him.
good for the
So,
second.
I'll check with Patty on the room, and if it's not in this room, then we'll find some space in this building
There's
to,
only,
there's
if
only
we're all
a
here, there's
handful of
only
us,
7 of us,
so,
we can meet in the kitchen, break room.
okay. So, with that and a plan for moving forward, if
Motion to
anyone-
adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Bruce, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.